Hello and welcome to Wrestling in 1995, Episode 10, as we go to Mexico and cover CMLL in 1995. And as usual, we will be getting things started in January of 1995. The champions going into 1995 would be the CMLL World Heavyweight Champion Silver King, the CMLL World Light Heavyweight Champion Atlantis, the CMLL World Middleweight Champion is El Satanico, the CMLL World Welterweight Champion is El Pantera, the CMLL World Tag Team Champions are Los Cowboys, the CMLL World Trios Champions is La Ola Blanca. The CMLL World Women's Champion is Akira Hokuto. The NWA World Light Heavyweight Champion is El Dandy. The NWA World Middleweight Champion is Ultimo Dragon. And the NWA World Welterweight Championship is vacant. The first big title match in 1995 would see El Satanico successfully defend his CMLL World Middleweight Championship versus Hector Garza on January 7th. On January 12th, MS1 Jr. successfully defended the Mexican National Cruiserweight title, beating Blue Demon Jr. by disqualification. On January 25th, Peroth successfully defended the Mexican National Heavyweight title versus Dos Caras. On January 29th, Silver King would successfully defend his CMLL World Heavyweight title versus Pirata Morgan. To end the month of January, El Gran Marcus Jr. would successfully defend his Distrito Federal heavyweight title versus Brazo de Oro. Now, if you're not familiar with Lucha Libre, the championship matches are not the most important matches. The most important matches are the Lucha de Apuestas match, basically a bet match, where you bet either a mask or your hair. And the first Lucha de Apuestas match would happen on February 2nd, as Bestia Salvaje beat Black Power 2 in a hair versus hair match. On February 9th, we would see another Lucha de Apuestas match as Silver King beat Ari Romero in a hair versus hair match. On that same night, Mil Máscaras would successfully defend his IWA World Heavyweight Championship versus El Gran Marcus Jr. If you're a longtime listener of the Maritime Warrior YouTube channel, you'll remember I did an episode on Eddie Einhorn's IWA promotion from 1975. Well, this IWA World Heavyweight title is the exact same belt. There would be yet another Lucha de Apuestas match on February 19th as Javier Cruz beat Cesar Dante in a hair versus hair match. Peroth Jr. would successfully defend his Mexican National Heavyweight title on February 24th versus El Rayo de Jalisco Jr. The next Lucha de Apuestas match would see Apollo Dante get revenge for his brother Cesar Dante as he would beat Javier Cruz in a hair versus hair match. On March 2nd, Atlantis would successfully defend his CMLL World Light Heavyweight title versus Cranio. On March 3rd, we would see the first mask versus mask Lucha de Apuestas match as Mr. Niebla beat Estrella de Plata. On March 5th, we would see El Satanico successfully defend his CMLL World Middleweight title versus Negro Casas. On March 16th, El Dandy would successfully defend his NWA World Light Heavyweight title versus El Satanico. On March 17th, Ultimo Dragon would successfully defend his NWA World Middleweight title versus Corazon de Leon. On that same night, we would have a hair versus hair match as Sangre Chicana beat La Fiera. On March 24th, a one-night trios tournament called the Salvador Lutheroff Trios Tournament would take place. The finals would see Bestia Salvaje, Emilio Charlie Jr., and Sangre Chicana beat Los Brazos. On March 26, El Satanico would once again successfully defend his CMLL World Middleweight title versus Hector Garza. On March 30th, Silver King beat Dr. Wagner Jr. to retain the CMLL World Heavyweight title. On March 31st, we would see the first title change as Bestia Salvaje, Emilio Charlie Jr., and Sangre Chicana beat La Ola Blanca to win the CMLL Trios Championship. On that same night, brother versus brother, hair versus hair, as El Brazo beat Brazo de Oro in a Lucha de Apuestas match. Another Lucha de Apuestas match as Hector Garza beat El Satanico in a hair versus hair match. This would not be the end of the rivalry. They would meet again in 1995. On April 25th, Hector Garza would get another shot at El Satanico and the CMLL World Middleweight title, but El Satanico would once again retain his title. The next Lucha de Apuestas match would happen on April 27th as we would see a mask versus mask match as Águila Solitaria beat Black Machine. On April 29th, El Satanico would once again beat Hector Garza to retain his CMLL World Middleweight title. On May 23rd, Ultimo Dragon beat Bestia Salvaje to retain his NWA World Middleweight title. On May 26, Ultimo Dragon would once again beat Bestia Salvaje to retain his NWA World Middleweight title. Also that night, El Pantera beat the Great Sasuke to retain the CMLL World Welterweight title. On May 27th, Silver King retained his CMLL World Heavyweight title after beating Dr. Wagner Jr. The following month, on June 23rd, Silver King would lose the CMLL World Heavyweight Championship to Apollo Dante. On June 30th, the Headhunters beat Los Cowboys to win the CMLL World Tag Team titles. On July 7th, a one-night tournament would take place called the Grand Prix 1995. The finals would see Headhunter A beat Vampiro Canadiense. On July 13th, Apollo Dante beat El Rayo de Jalisco Jr. to retain the CMLL World Heavyweight Championship. On August 4th, the Headhunters would successfully defend their CMLL World Tag Team titles after beating Dos Caras and Silver King. Also on that night, we would see Hector Garza beat El Brazo in a hair versus hair match. On August 15th, Brazo de Oro beat El Gran Marquez Jr. to win the Distrito Federal Heavyweight title. On August 25th, El Dandy beat Ray Gonzalez to retain the NWA World Light Heavyweight title. On September 1st, the CMLL Second Generation Tag Team Tournament would take place. The finals would see Apollo Dante and Emilio Charlie Jr. beat El Hijo del Santo and El Rayo de Jalisco Jr. The WrestleMania of CMLL had arrived. This was the CMLL 62nd anniversary show. The anniversary show would take place on September 23rd, and on that show, Apollo Dante would beat Corazon de Leon to retain the CMLL World Heavyweight title, and the main event would see Miguel Perez Jr. beat Silver King in a hair versus hair match. On October 17th, El Dandy beat Mano Negra to retain the NWA World Light Heavyweight title. On November 3rd, Atlantis and El Rayo de Jalisco Jr. beat the Headhunters to win the CMLL World Tag Team titles. On November 12th, Apollo Dante beat Vampiro Canadiense to retain the CMLL World Heavyweight Championship. On November 17th, a tournament would get started to crown a brand new NWA World Welterweight Champion. On November 25th, Máscara Año 2000 beat El Rayo de Jalisco Jr. to retain the IWC World Heavyweight title. The IWC World Heavyweight title had been AAA's top title, but it was now in CMLL. On December 1st, the finals of the NWA World Welterweight title tournament would take place, and Negro Casas would beat El Hijo del Santo to win the championship. Also that night, Hector Garza beat Bestia Salvaje in a hair versus hair match. On December 5th, the Ruleta de la Muertes tournament would take place, and the finals would see Brazo de Oro and El Hijo del Gladiator beat Blue Demon Jr. and Ringo Mendoza. On December 15th, Shocker beat Chaos in a mask versus mask match. Also, Apollo Dante beat Vampiro Canadiense to retain his CMLL World Heavyweight title. And Hector Garza beat El Satanico in a hair versus hair match. And on December 17th, Dr. Wagner Jr. beat Atlantis to win the CMLL World Light Heavyweight title. That was CMLL in 1995. How do their rivals AAA do in 1995? Well, you'll have to tune in next month, because that will be the next episode, Wrestling in 1995, Episode 11, AAA. Thank you very much for listening, and I will see you next week.